Disneyland Park is well known for being one of the best theme parks in Europe. Built back in 1992, when this park first opened, it only really had a couple of attractions. However, just over 30 years later, it now has some of the best and most themed attractions on the planet. However, where is this theme park located? Disneyland Park is located in Ile-de-France, France, and unlike most parts in the country, this is actually a really easy place to get to. The reason why I say this is due to it only being located around a half-an-hour drive away from the centre of Paris. This is the largest city in the country and actually it's quite nice. However, in terms of the park itself, their main roller coaster is Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain. To start off with, this has some of the best trains in the country. From the restraints to the front car, it's honestly just amazing. However, in terms of the ride itself, it's got some great drops along with some decent inversions. And as much as these were amazing, what really surprised me was the onboard audio. This made for my personal favourite ride at the park and just a great overall coaster. Right on the other side of the park is Big Thunder Mountain, and out of the three I've experienced, this was by far my favourite. It's got some great drops along with some decent airtime, and just like most rides at the park, the theme was some of the best on the planet. Something else to point out is that it's also got one of the best queue lines in the park. Overall, this makes for a great coaster and definitely something to experience. Another great ride at the park is Indiana Jones in the Temple of Peril, and despite its size, it's actually a really fun roller coaster. It's got some decent drops along with some great theming. However, by far the best part of the ride was the vertical loop, and before riding, I wasn't actually expecting much. However, I have to say that it made for one of my favourite inversions. Also, not to mention that this also has one of the best themed queue lines at the park. The last roller coaster at the park comes under the name of Casey Jr. Le Petit Train de Circuit. Built back in 1994, this is the world's only kind of power coaster, and despite its uniqueness, it's still a fun ride. It's got some great turns along with some onboard audio, and just like the other coaster at the park, it's also got some decent theming. This was most notable through the layout and was great to see. Overall, this made for a great family coaster and just a fun ride. However, besides the coasters, the park does also have some great attractions. Some of my favourites include the Pirates of the Caribbean, and this was by far my favourite dark ride at the park. To start off, it has one of the best themed queue lines on the planet. This is then followed by the station, and just like the queue line, it has some amazing theming along with some great operations. However, once you go onto the ride itself, it just moves it on to the next level. It's got some fun drops along with some great effects. Overall, this made for one of the best dark rides on the planet and definitely something to experience. Another dark ride at the park is Phantom Manor, and unlike the haunted mansions in both Disney World and also Disneyland, it was actually located in Frontierland, and in my opinion, this was the perfect location for it. However, the ride itself was still quite fun. It's got some decent animatronics along with some great sound effects. Something else to point out was that unlike most attractions at the park, it also had a great exit. Right on the other side of the park is Buzz Lightyear Laser Blast, and as much as it may not be the most themed attraction at the park, it's still a fun ride. It's got a decent queue line with some great animatronics. However, by far the best part of the ride had to be the trains. This is due to them having some decent theming along with it being very interactive. Overall, it's a fun ride, however I wouldn't rush to it. Right next door to Buzz Lightyear Laser Blast is Autopia, and before recently I wasn't actually a huge fan of this ride. However, after my recent visit, I have to say that's actually a really fun attraction. It's got some decent theming along with the cars itself, and this is by far the best part of the ride. Something else to point out was that unlike most of these attractions, the cars were quite spaced out. Another fun ride at the park is Star Tours The Avengers Continue, and this is by far the most underrated ride at the park. It's got a great queue line with some nice theming and also a great animatronic. However, the ride itself doesn't disappoint either. Something else to point out was that it also had multiple different sequences. Overall, this made for a fun ride and definitely an underrated attraction. One of the weaker attractions at the park comes under the form of Peter Pan's Flight, and even though it made it be the smoothest dark ride, it was still fun to experience. To start off, we had a decent queue line along with a themed station. However, something else to point out was that unlike most attractions at the park, it also had some very slow operations, and as much as this is the case, it was still a fun ride along with some decent animatronics. Right next door to Peter Pan's Flight is Le Voyages de Pinocchio, and in my opinion, this was by far the better of the two dark rides. It's got some great trains along with some decent scenes. However, what made this ride so good were the animatronics. These were most notable throughout the ride itself, and honestly just amazing. Overall, this is a fun dark ride, it's definitely something to experience. Another classic dark ride at the park is Blancane's Sepnays. To start off with, this had a great queue line along with some decently themed trains, and even though this is one of the older attractions at the park, it was still a great ride. Something else to point out was that just like most rides at the park, the animatronics were some of the best in the country. Overall, this is a fun ride and it's definitely a classic at the park. Right on the other side of the park is Le Pays de Contest Fees, and just like Pirates of the Caribbean, this is a mix between a awards ride and also a dark ride. However, even though this is the case, I have to say that apart from the theming, this was one of the weaker attractions at the park. But something else to point out was that you do also get some great interaction. Overall, this is a decent attraction at the park, but I wouldn't put it near the top of your list. The last one which I wanted to talk about is the Disneyland Railroad, and I have to say, this is actually one of my favourite attractions at the park. It gives you some great views over the park and also the surrounding area. However, by far my favourite part of the ride is the tunnel in Adventureland. This gives you a great view of the Pirates of the Caribbean and also a great interaction. Overall, it's a fun ride and it's definitely something to experience. However, in terms of entertainment, Disneyland Park has some of the best on the planet. This is due to them offering shows, parades, and also character interactions. And on my visit, I only got to watch a couple of shows. However, I have to say that it's definitely something to check out. But in terms of other information to visiting Disneyland Park, I'd place try arriving at the park at least half an hour before the advertised opening time. This will then allow you to get into your first attraction, hopefully be near the front of the queue. But in terms of which attraction to head to first, I'd place recommend heading straight to Peter Pan's Flight. This is due to this ride often building up some long lines nights throughout the day. But after your ride, I'd personally recommend taking a look around the park and experiencing some more of their attractions. But after this, you'll likely be looking for some lunch, and in terms of what time to have lunch, I'd personally recommend eating at either 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock. This is due to this being the quietest time and they're likely having no wait. However, in terms of where to eat, on my visit we ate in Cafe Hyperion and also Casey's Corner. These were both great options as it wasn't too overpriced and also the restaurants offered some nice theming. But after you finish your lunch, I'd personally recommend taking another look around the park and experiencing some more of their attractions. However, once the park closes, you'll likely be looking for some merchandise, and just like the other Disney parks, this is some of the best in the world. However, in terms of how long you need to spend at the park, I'd personally recommend visiting for around 2 days. But what are my overall thoughts on Disneyland Park? Disneyland Park is my personal favourite theme park in Europe. It offers some great attractions along with some amazing theming. However, what are your thoughts on Disneyland Park? Make sure to leave any thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, I'll see you in the next one.